Sussan Ley is the opposition leader and she joins us now in the studio. Susan, I'm sorry that this is the occasion under which we are in the studio. You've spent a lot of time today in and around Bondi and with the Jewish community. What are they saying to you?
I have, Paul. I spent several hours with them this morning, early afternoon, and then I've just come from a service at a synagogue in Bondi. And I've just got to say, you know, when I spend time with Jewish women, they are vibrant, they are strong, they are laughing, and I have such incredible memories of those times. To sit with a group of Jewish women and just hear them quietly sobbing tonight was one of the toughest things about all of this for me, because they have lost so much and there is palpable anger. Yes, there's deep sorrow and deep distress and all of the things that you and your amazing programming, Sky News, Shari, who I just thought was incredible last night and incredible today, and all of your programs have captured so well. But you have to hear that anger for yourself when you walk the streets, as I did, and people stop you, and not angry with me, but they're very angry, can I be frank, with the government, because they say they're tired of all these words and the words have got to stop and something has to be done. And my point today in the call that I made publicly to the Prime Minister was I've offered bipartisan support for any measures that need to come through the agencies, the policing services, etc., in the immediate response. But we have the report from Gillian Siegel, and it is comprehensive and it has recommendations and it has been sitting there for months and it needs to be acted on. Because, Paul, you're mentioning these National Cabinet recommendations, you know, all very sensible and so on, as I'm sure we'll start to look through them. But it takes a long time for the states to do anything. You know that. They sit around the table, they put out some nice communiques, and then everything sort of goes into a bit of a black hole. But this report is done. These recommendations are ready to be implemented. And it needs to happen because the community needs to see action.
Yeah, and I know that some people have been specifically angry about the Prime Minister also having the Islamophobia report, but that's on his desk too. That's the issue here, is that these are long-standing issues, and I'm not talking about the historic, I'm talking about the reality of Australia and how to deal with them. He's got this information, he's got these advocates, but again, that sense of urgency and the community, because we all know the truth is that no community, any community, can have some permanent bubble and guarantee of absolute safety at all times. But when it itself is saying part of why we feel unsafe is because of recommendation 1 through... What does it say to you about the lack of urgency or ongoing public engagement about wanting to allay those fears?
Exactly. Where's the contact with the community? Where's the bringing of the community, the Jewish community, into the Prime Minister's office, into the halls of government for an ongoing conversation? Okay, we want to work with you, because what you've described is a government that thinks that anti-Semitism is a problem to be managed, not an evil to be eradicated.
Great point.
And that's what's making the community so angry and distressed. I spoke to a young man tonight who just came up to me and told me how someone had died in his arms and how 2 other people, he'd held them waiting for help to arrive. And just to look into his eyes and see what he had been through less than 24 hours ago. And I said to him, "Where are you going now?" And he said, "I'm going home alone." Wow. I really worry about that. I worry about the trauma, the fact that no one has words for this and no one can describe the effect that it's going to have, except to say that it has changed the country forever. But our leaders need to take action, and anti-Semitism has been boiling since October 7, 2023. I have spoken to so many members of the Jewish community in the last 2 years. You have too. Your reporters have, and they've had these examples. And I can't believe that we just haven't seen where this would go in terms of our Prime Minister and his ministers and the actions that they haven't taken to address this hideous, hideous scourge.
So as you know, Josh Frydenberg did a documentary for us. One of the questions that he asked one of the great modern Prime Ministers in John Howard was what would he have done if he was leading Australia in and after the time of October the 7th. He said he would have picked up the phone to the then opposition leader, Kim Beazley, and would have, let's stand together in the Prime Minister's courtyard, equal standing, and let's say what is acceptable and not acceptable, what is the red lines, and what is the need to deal with the scourge. Has any offer been made to you to be briefed about what the government knows?
I spoke to the Prime Minister last night and again this morning, and I asked for a security briefing, which I had later today, and that's as far as it's gone, and I appreciate that. But the Prime Minister knows how we feel. We called for a national cabinet months ago. We called for the states and the Commonwealth to sit at the table and work out, OK, how do we get through this? How do we work together? How do we stop making excuses about things that can't be done and work on the things that can be done, should be done and must be done? We called for that. My amazing colleague Julian Lisa has put forward private members' bills designed to sanction the universities for allowing hate speech and what we've seen on campuses. There's been many, many actions. We adopted the recommendations in opposition of all of Gillian Seagal's report, and we want that to happen. The government knows where we stand, and we need to see action from them that meets the community and indeed the entire Australian population where they expect their government to be right now.
Two things I'd like you to quickly respond to about the Prime Minister, who did an interview this evening on the 7:30 on the ABC. He was asked by its host about the reaction which has come from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We'll roll the tape to have a look at his answer.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said today he singled you out personally, he said, for pouring fuel on the anti-Semitism fire by recognising a Palestinian state. Do you accept any link between that recognition and the massacre in Bondi?
No, I don't. And overwhelmingly, most of the world recognises a two-state solution as being the way forward in the Middle East.
Now, again, you've had your differences in and around recognition. What's your thought to his response to the criticism which has come from the Israeli Prime Minister? Again, this is an Australian tragedy, but the comments have come from a significant world leader.
He could have answered that question by talking about what his government will do to tackle anti-Semitism and reassure the Jewish community. Instead, he's gone to his political talking points about UN recognition, something that we criticised at the time with very good reason. As Leader of the Opposition here, my job is always to focus on the national interest, our communities and the safety and security of our communities. But I can understand the frustration from so many, including the words that I heard today, for the inaction that they have seen over the last 2.5 years in a rising tide of anti-Semitism. We've seen this beautiful city used as a backdrop for hate. Our bridge with the march, our opera house in the early days. The inability of, it seemed, people to be shut down from the things that they were saying and the evil that they were spouting. And I just felt that sense of despair today when the rest of the world is looking at Sydney and this is what they're seeing. We can be much better than this, and we must be much better than this. And we must recognise that for Jewish Australians, they've seen this. They've marked it, and
they've seen the tide coming in.
They've seen the tide coming in. I mean, when I went to the East Melbourne Synagogue and realised that little 4-year-old children are high-fiving guards with long arms as they go into kindergarten, and that's normal. You know, you think of the 4-year-olds in your life, and we wouldn't accept that. We mustn't accept that. No. And the parents who said to me, some days I just wake up and I read something online and I think, I can't send my child to school today, and I just close the front door. Today, kids were saying that they want to change out of their school uniform and go to school in plain clothes so nobody sees them. This has been building, Paul. This is awful. And today I saw these teenage girls beautiful girls just sitting on the grass at the pavilion, and they had no words. And I looked at them and thought of the bright future that any young Australian girl should have in a place like Bondi in a country like Australia, and they were just dripping with sadness, and it was heartbreaking. And I know that there are so many examples of this, and that's why we're determined. We're very determined to do whatever we can to affect the change that Jewish Australians in particular need to see today.
I can literally see the passion in your eyes, and as everyone can hear in your resolve here. Last one before I'll let you go. Again, Prime Minister, ABC Tonight, he was asked, well, the question was done in this way. I think we've left it in what I'm about to show you, and then his response. I know there's plenty of people who'd like to hear your answer to the same question, so let's have a look.
When the inevitable calls arise from some parts of our society linking the Bondi massacre to Muslim immigration to Australia, how will you respond?
That what we've seen in the last 24 hours ago was the worst of humanity in a terrorist act, but we also saw an example of the best of humanity in Ahmed El-Ahmed running towards danger, putting his own life at risk, being shot twice by the second perpetrator as he took the gun bravely off this terrorist, and that saved lives. We in Australia, regardless of where who people believe in, what their faith is, or whether they have no faith at all, overwhelmingly, we are a great nation, and we are not going to allow anyone, let alone these terrorists, to divide us.
Now again, the absolute, and it's not merely mouth words, it's the obvious words, right? Which is that, you know, people coming from all over the world, that's our modern story, right? The idea that there's a threshold about which faith, and that's not the issue here, right? But better screening in and around fundamental questions that can be asked of people seems fairly obvious here. You've spoken about values tests and the rest. Your response to the Prime Minister?
People who come to Australia need to share our core values, to have a commitment to our country, to the rule of law, to the dignity of the individual, to tolerance and mutual respect. Successive Liberal governments have operated non-discriminatory migration policies, and it's clear that the events that we've seen are hideous anti-Semitism, and that should be called out. It shouldn't be moved to another discussion. It shouldn't be hidden in the darkness. It should be brought into the light. This is hideous, unacceptable, never before seen anti-Semitism in this country. It is a targeting of Jewish people because they are Jewish. And as Leader of the Opposition, I will do all that I can, and my team will, to force this government to protect Jewish Australians, to protect Australians, and to secure justice.
Sussan Ley, thank you very much for coming in. I'm sorry again that this is the occasion. Thank you for spending as much time as you did in and around the community and the discussions we'll all be having into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.